Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen with tips and useful information for 3.9 to help improve your Star Citizen experience, from performance gains to generating more Alpha UEC in-game to what's in for the meta. I get asked a lot about what the ship weapon and equipment meta is for, X patch. I can give you the basics of what I understand for 3.9. For ship weapons in 3.9, it isn't mass drivers for all anymore. In fact, it seems that a lot more weapons are at least viable. You can use the Urkel loadout tool, which I've linked below, to work out your perfect ship loadout. But I am really liking laser repeaters just for lots of pew-pew at the moment, especially with auto gimbals. Also, auto gimbals are a little slower to track than before. Please bear that in mind. They are still very powerful, but they are a bit slower. The meta, however, seems to be focused on ballistic weapons and neutrons for highest DPS. Shields-wise, if you have multiple slots, you'll want to mix shields to get bonuses of them all and cover the weaknesses of whatever weakness they sort of have. So, for example, size 2 shields, the Tavaran Sukaran shield blocks ballistic very well and has a very high health pool, but suffers from low regeneration and long regeneration delay. It is very useful to mix in with a shield with good regen. So you'd mix it with like an Obscura size 2 shield, which has very good regen, but obviously suffers from not having a particularly great health pool. For size 1 shields, I really like the Mirage shield for its regen, and it should be a staple of any shield that you're mixing in. If you've got multiple shield slots, one of them should be a Mirage. Then you've got the Palisade, which are great health pool wise, or the FR shields, which have good health pool and are sort of like a good all-rounder. Having a Mirage shield and then filling the rest of the slots up with Palisades seems like a good strat to me. If you are using a single shield, then the FR shields for the appropriate size of the ship that you're using seem to be a good all-rounder. They give you good regen, good health pool. They won't pop instantly. The Reliance are much more viable as ships now as well. The Tanner is a solid fighter. At the moment, at least for me, shield choice is much more important than weapon choice. I suppose if you're doing PvE versus PvP with weapons, is going to affect your choices and obviously how you sort of engage, what you're engaging, all that sort of jazz, but that's true of everything, I suppose. But shields seem a lot more important to me anyway at the moment. I see a lot of people not realizing that some ships have different flight modes, and you can decouple from the sort of like landing and normal flight modes by just pressing J. So you can actually just change the rotation of your engines in ships that have engine rotation. So the Reliant, the Prowler, the Cutlass, that sort of thing. Press J, bam, and that will, doesn't matter if you're in landing mode or not. Mining and trade stuff. So I saw Salty Mike doing a mining operation on stream where he was finding minables, and when he'd come back there after everyone had left, those minables would actually change their percentage mineral of a particular thing. So it's more of a bug and Cloud Imperium waiting on the iCache, but if you find a mineable and then leave that area and everyone else leaves that area, the yield of that rock is not saved. So bear that in mind, and if you come back, it will be different. So that can help you find Quantanium, it can help you lose Quantanium, so bear that in mind. And if you find a juicy rock, you'll have to get someone to stay by it, or you'll have to stay by it. And there are more ships than just the Mole and the Prospector that can scan for minables. So they're very useful for mining operations, obviously. This is the Terrapin, the Cutlass Red, the Carrack, and I believe there's mixed results with the Reliant Sen and Reclaimer as well. I actually have had the Reliant Sen working for scanning minables in 3.9, at least in the PTU. If there are others that I've missed out, feel free to comment below. But I would love to see a service beacon that literally let you scan a rock and then save it, and then you could browse for rocks and then buy the locations of rocks from the service beacons. That'd be great. And it gave you like a quantum travel marker to it, and you could zoom off there. That would give great sort of like gameplay for people that want to scan down things like that and then sell them to other people, as well as people that just want to go, actually, I don't mind spending a load of money on getting a really high yield Quantanium rock that someone else has already found. That would be great. But obviously with the iCache, we'll be able to get all this sort of data saved and something like that to exist more readily. In the meantime, I'm going to fiddle around with 3.9 and see if I can work out a way of using service beacons to standardize a way of selling locations of rocks by another means. Well, I'll come back to that in another video. You can make a lot of money from Quantanium. I mine it around Yella and sell it at Port Olisar, or you can mine it at Clio and Uterpi and sell it at Microtech. There's a few other places you can get it as well, but Yella is obviously pretty good for it. You'll have just over 15 minutes, typically, from when you start to mine the first bit of Quantanium ore, or at least when it gets into your cargo bay, until you have to have it sold before it explodes. Though it will destabilize if you take damage, or when you're moving it around or jostling it. When you've landed your ship, you can obviously despawn it and then sell the Quantanium much more safely. So like spawning another ship or whatever will despawn that current ship that you've got on the landing pad, which is great. Or you can just, you know, run and go and sell stuff. If your goal is to make Alpha UEC in the current patch, I would grind up to buy a Prospector, then mine Quantanium. It is so much less risky than cargo hauling, as obviously you can lose everything to a crash or attack in a Caterpillar that's stocked up or a cargo ship. And that's the risk of leveraging its capacity, I suppose. The Prospector is an obtainable goal, and then you can make a lot of money from it. You can even grab a rented Prospector in the short term, but remember, you can't modify rented ships, but learning to mine while you're grinding will pay dividends. And you can still mine some Quantanium. It's just without a Helix laser, which you'll want to buy when you have a Prospector, you aren't going to be able to get to the larger rocks easily. And obviously you can't modify your ship with a rented ship, so you can't do that with a rented one. Just bear that in mind. You're only going to be able to have smaller rocks and therefore less profit, I suppose. On Reddit, I saw a post by Hyors with a public service announcement. You can land ships at the surface entrances to some landing zones, like at the garages at New Babbage. And it seems that, at the moment at least, you can even trade while landed there. So you can literally land outside the surface entrance right next to it. And as long as you're close enough, you can just run inside and trade pretty quick. You don't need to request a landing there either, but you don't have the protection of landing in a hangar. You'll need to interact with the appropriate refinery or trade kiosk deeper in the landing zones though, so bear that in mind. Your mileage may vary using that tactic. There's obviously a huge amount of stuff that you can trade in Star Citizen and different places you can trade them. So if you're trying to work out what makes the most Alpha UEC and what the best trade routes are, at the moment I use galog.co as a little app. It shows you what each of the landing zones, stations and outposts buys and sells, and helps you calculate routes. It's a really helpful, useful tool. It's been updated to 3.9. Use it. Wind will affect your ship as well, so bear this in mind. It can make it very hard for you to land or move around planets when it's very gusty. In certain ships, like the Carrack, it feels like you don't have the correct mass, that you're almost weightless, so be careful. Sometimes you can just go poof, and your ship's gone. Just bear that in mind. Survival-wise, you can store food and drink on you if you've got storage space. Some things you can't store. The heavier the armor, typically the more storage it has, and then armor with backpacks has even more storage. Your flight suit typically won't have any storage on it by default. The storage of the food and drink is saved in the actual armor piece, so your torso armor piece. So you can fill suits of armor and then put them on, nom nom nom, have a buffet in them, and then change them out for another suit of armor that doesn't have any food in, or whatever. The Novikov and Pembroke armor are technically flight suits, but they are just one-piece heavy armors, and they're very, very useful to use for food storage and drink storage for your little buffet. If you drop your personal inventory as a box in a cargo grid, that will put all items from that suit of armor in that box. So make sure you drop any food and drinks separately before that, so you can pick them back up afterwards, because once they're in that box, you can't get them back out. Also, when purchasing food and drink at vendors, when you quickly buy, if you keep buying without moving, it will put the last item that it could possibly put in your inventory most of the time, so you don't have to individually stow bottles of water. You can just grab them one by one. Just don't spam the button, otherwise you'll be chucking them everywhere and dropping them on the floor. Items in the personal inventory of the suit you are wearing are lost when you die. Be aware of that. So I have suits of armor that I use for combat and suits of armor that I use for buffet. There are new armors that protect you from heat or cold conditions. These two new heavy armor suits have a big storage capacity and protect you from the hot or cold. The Pembroke suit is for protection against extreme heat, such as that on Daymar. You can purchase this at Lawville, and there's the Novikov suit for extreme cold, which can be purchased at Port Tressler's armor shop. I fill mine full of hydrating fruit, golden medmons, drinks, typically Garcia Green's shakes. That is my recommendation for food and drink, although as long as you've got a load of hydration and a little bit of food, you're typically fine. You are going to be needing a lot more hydration more regularly than you are going to need to eat. It was said that with maxed out food and drink meters, you'd take 7 hours to die from thirst and 10 hours to die from hunger if you stood still, but being active will drain this quicker, and hydration is something you might need to think about a few times over a play session. Also, if you're doing group activities, there are always people that constantly seem to need to eat and drink. Like, even if you've just given them, like, 3 bottles of water, they will still need more. I don't know how they drink it like a horse. I bring loads of extra and I share, but that's sort of like good practice for anyone doing group activities. Bring a load of spares. For Star Citizen performance-wise, it's good practice to install Star Citizen on an SSD. Doing that will save you a lot of initial loading time, because every time you load up the game, it's going to take ages to load initially, and then it's supposed to be seamless. Also, deleting your user folder is good practice to avoid errors, or at least deleting the shader folder from your Robert Space Industries Star Citizen Live user folder. I do have a rough Star Citizen and Windows 10 performance guide too, which I will link below. Obviously, update your graphics drivers, but there's a lot of stuff you can turn off, like game bar and things like that. Make sure you've updated to the latest Windows 10 drivers. Lots of stuff that's obviously quite obvious, but there's some little bits there as well that might be useful for you. In Star Citizen's options, check to make sure that you have face over IP VoIP turned off if you're not using it, because this can be quite a big drain on frames. So bear that in mind. That's a lot of people's frame rates were suffering quite badly from that. I hope that was helpful though. If you have any tips, or if you've got any better meta advice, or any performance tips, or any other, 3.9 things that you think are useful, and whether they be apps, better advice, or no, these weapons are better, no, these shields are better, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Congratulations on the Star Citizen Reddit for passing 200,000 subscribed readers as well. That's absolutely massive achievement. I'm sort of congratulating Reddit as its own entity, Star Citizen Reddit, but congratulations there. Until the end of May, there's a YouTube Premium bonus going on for those of you that are in the UK and have YouTube Premium. If you're in the UK and Ireland and a few other countries, you may have been offered a free channel membership. Please consider using it here. And if you don't have a free channel membership, or you're not in the UK or the US, then consider paying for channel membership via the little join button below the video, as it gives money to me and I like money. Every month we have a giveaway. For May, we're giving away a Star Citizen game package with Arrow Light Fighter. All you've got to do to be in for a chance of winning that is comment on any of my videos made during the month. More details below. I am a shill for a couple of companies, NordVPN and NordPass. If you are looking for a VPN or a password management system, I recommend you check them out. They've got many benefits over free services, and as I'm pretty security conscious, I love those kind of services. Also, there's Shadow. If you are thinking about getting a new gaming rig or upgrading your gaming PC for Star Citizen or whatever, then consider Shadow instead. It is an internet cloud-based subscription service like Stadia, like GeForce Now, but this one gives you access to a full Windows 10 environment which is fully customizable, and that is significantly better in my opinion, allowing you to do a lot more with it. Check out the links below for them, or use the code BoredGamer for discount. Also, if you wish to support the channel further, there is Patreon, there's the YouTube join member button down below. That really helps. This is a community supported channel, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without the support that I get. If you want to share these videos, if you want to comment, give feedback, whatever, that is also hugely appreciated. Thanks very much for watching, guys. You take care, and I'll see you in the verse.